Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting Propagandacast with me, your host, Imperial Dane, Master of Propaganda, and here to deliver you another exciting Propagandacast to educate you in the finer arts of some war, not quite the art of war. I don't think there's ever been such one. But nonetheless, here to educate you, here to get you a bit up on your tactics, strategy, understanding of all sorts of concepts, if possible, if not, at least to entertain you and give you a good laugh. And of course, we are having a 1 versus 1, this time on Sturzdorf. Yes, indeed, we will be having a bit of fighting on Sturzdorf with the Fabrique and the Pitlevsky building. Yes, indeed, ominously looming over the entire battlefield, Mr. Pitlevsky sits and laughs menacingly. Oh dear, whatever is he up to, I do not know, and I don't want to know. But we are going to have a 1 versus 1, and in this case it's going to be against 2 level 10 players. Yes, indeed, I know you want some high level play, but I can't always provide it. So again, you high level players, provide it. You lower level players, find some higher level players, kick their asses and tell them to send in some replays. That's how it works, ladies and gentlemen. Violence. Nonetheless, we are going to have a bit of fight right here, and of course, Sturzdorf, a bit like Ruins of Ruin, which you hopefully ought to have been seeing by now if YouTube preferably uploads yesterday's episode. It's also a bit of a, urban map, but not quite as dense, not quite as many features that can actually block your line of fire, in particular the line of fire of a Pack 38. So of course that does make it a bit more open, but again, sort of the same things apply, lots of buildings. In particular, this, for example, is a very nice one to put in riflemen in, or any sort of infantry unit. Lots of windows. That is, of course, means it's good for infantry, whereas fewer windows, at least not well-placed windows, like perhaps this building, means it's more suited for heavy machine guns. This, on the other hand, well, it rarely gets used, actually, but I think it's got about, a decent amount of windows. But again, some buildings, even despite having nice positioning, sort of gets forgotten in the mists of time. Right next to smoke. But let us in fact go have a look at our opponents. In the northern corner we are seeing a Wehrmacht player, CptFrakasse, or Frakasse, who knows? It is a mysterium, a question mark raised above the centuries. But he is here fighting for Sir 9th Panzer Division, which I do believe actually fought in Normandy. I'm a bit unsure about the actual Wehrmacht divisions. You don't hear so much about the regular Panzer Divisions. It's mostly just the SS Panzer Divisions and the Panzerlehr, and then the regular Panzer Divisions sort of get mentioned occasionally. For example, I know the 21st, which sort of had a prominent role, but the 2nd is harder to learn about, and so are the other few that fought in Normandy. And most of them did fight against the British, which might have something to do about it. And we are in fact seeing some Brits right here in the southern corner, Ronniethebear. Well, I do know the Poles actually had a bear with them in Italy. I believe it's called Wojciech, if that's probably pronounced, but this I don't think is a regimental mascot, nor do I believe the bear is their commander, but nonetheless here he is, fighting for the 7th Armoured Division. And in fact, let us get right into it. Let's not muck about any further, let us not tarry, let us not chit-chat. Wehrmacht quarters going up. Again, the unusual thing, although again some players, in particular the high ranking, do like to go heavily on the pioneer spam, but apparently CptFrakasse does have honor, integrity, or he just doesn't know about it. I mean, that's possible as well. And meanwhile, recon section heading from the south, not much they can do. I mean, there's no buildings the Brits really can build right off the bat. Well, they can, but that's not really going to help them in the war effort from the beginning. Going for the munitions point, and that could of course mean that our British command truck will be popping up there. That's the usual business. And from the Wehrmacht quarters we are seeing Volksgrenadiers arriving on the field. Lieutenant ready, looking very dashing and lieutenant-like. And looks like a second unit on the way from the headquarters command truck. Probably not a second lieutenant, more likely another infantry section, not packing up right away. That's certainly possible, but not optimal if you're then sort of hoping to pack it up, because you might as well get it moved and then send out the infantry section so it doesn't sort of become slow afterwards. Volksgrenadiers ready. Again, nice mix of uniforms. I rather like that detail. Actually fits again the sort of low quality troops they're supposed to represent, which weren't as optimally and fully equipped even in uniforms. Which of course is a fun detail. And going through here, a bit of a curious capping order. Perhaps not the one I'd recommend, at least not the most efficient one, but then again, that's all up to sort of personal preference in some cases, as long as you just ensure connecting things. And there we go, another infantry section on the move, probably going to be linking up with that lieutenant, or lieutenant, depending on pronunciation. Volksgren is right in the east, and we're seeing an MG42, Maschinengewehr 42. Workhorse of the Wehrmacht infantry, or backbone. In fact, the infantry squad of the Wehrmacht was in fact centered around the MG42. The tripod variant was actually sort of meant for a heavy platoon, more heavy support, while the more integral bit was not a tripod mount, but is in fact the bipod mount. But still, Wehrmacht squads were centered about that. All troops, in fact, had some ammunition for it. It was a bit adverse with the American infantry unit, which was centered around the M1 Garand, and then sort of everything centered about that, which also led to some slightly different infantry tactics, but certainly bits like that which can illuminate why things are grouped like that, although that doesn't explain why the LMG-42 is rubbish, but let's not get stuck on that. Pioneers need to retreat. They are not really suited to facing off against the reconnaissance section right out in the middle of everything while they're taking a point, and while taking a point they are easier targets. One Pioneer down, and if Ronnie is a good no, he doesn't have the munition for it, and Pioneer team lost. Quite unfortunate from the CptFrakasse. Volksgren is setting up position there, not the best building, I might argue. MG42 popping in as well though, and Volksgren is vacating the premises. MG42 opening up on the Brits, hiding right behind their lieutenant. Is quite a bit beaten up. Infantry section firing away, MG42 in there, firing as well there, and the Volksgrens are hiding behind some sort of control thingy. And one infantry section down, rest are suppressed and retreating. And one thing to note, you actually have to sort of give your lieutenant a separate retreat order, otherwise he might actually get gunned down, because he then sort of takes a leisurely pace. Oh right, the lads are retreating, well I'd best take a stroll. And then he gets shot down usually, or takes quite a beating, because apparently he doesn't get that retreat means get the bloody hell out of there. A second MG42 has arrived, setting up to cover the other areas. A tight movement right here from our Wehrmacht friend of the 9th Panzer Division. Not unusual, not a bad idea. I suppose if you want to use your MG42s to sort of keep them covered, each on their own. Volksgren is team number 2 getting ready, which of course means a decent tier 1 start. 2 Volksgren teams, 2 MG42s. No support trucks as of yet from here. And looks like someone is hiding in there. No idea why. Looks like no skirmish phase, but looks like a Schwimmwagen is on the way. Quite interesting. Schwimmwagens were reconnaissance vehicles equipped for the armored divisions, so the reconnaissance troops had something a bit more maneuverable to get around them and provide them support. An amphibious jeep, if you will. The Kubelwagen was also used for those bits, I believe, but the Schwimmwagen, due to its more all-terrain role, or at least getting over water, made it a bit more useful for the Panzer Division's reconnaissance unit. And always nice with a bit of friendly encouragement. I do regularly get emails or messages saying how great I am and how much they've learned from these casts, which is quite frankly amazing, and I love to hear it. I mean, it's always good to know that I'm making a difference for people trying to learn this game and of course getting better. And packing up right here, that seems to be not awfully well timed. And you might of course argue, why is that? Well, as you might have noticed, he already has a lot of territory, and of course that right means now he's cut off from all that territory. It also means all of his units, which are not under the supervision of a lieutenant, will be moving around as if were crippled. Not the best start, not the best thing. So of course I'd strongly advise against that. Schwimmwagen there, looking Schwimmwagen-y. And very interesting enough, we're seeing a fuel point, already got quite a bit of fuel. No skirmish phase though, of course he's probably going with this. And of course this is the only high fuel point on the entire map. Secured safely behind this, and of course, what does this mean? Probably he's going to get some armor, he's going to get some panzers, and he's going to stick a jackboot up his opponent's arse, if he can get away with it. Volksgren is reporting territory captured. Good job, meine Herren. Schwimmwagen moving in to support. Point here being secured. MG42s could move a bit now, a bit further away, you know, not necessary to sort of create a Schwerpunkt right here. I don't think that's going to be the immediate point of concern. And Ronniethebear setting up to sort of support his operations right here in the center, going up with a mortar emplacement. Not a bad idea. Plus a casualty station right close to the front. Not a bad idea either. And field support truck under fire from the Frakasse forces. Volksgrenadiers moving in from other sides, Lieutenant. And we are seeing Blitzkrieg have been chosen. Assault grenades being used. And of course the British troops don't really have much of a place to run to, which of course will make the assault grenades much more effective. There we go. First grenade lands. Stunning and doing a bit of damage. Volksgrenadiers taking a point right in front of their noses. Mortar firing. Reconnaissance section moving in. And the mortar is apparently unable to hit. Quite unfortunate. Schwimmwagen moving in to attack from the rear. Oh, the inhumanity. Further Volksgrenadiers moving in. MG42 as well. Volksgrenadiers though taking a bit of damage. Heavily wounded and throwing another set of assault grenades. Be careful. I mean, it is 50 munitions. And there we go. Only 2 grenades. Not very effective. And what the devil is he doing? He's setting up an MG42 in the middle of everywhere. Oh dear, don't set it out in the open. Do not set it up in MG42 out in the open in particular. When there's close to all this stuff there. But assault grenades right out in the middle of everything, causing heavy losses for the Brits. The reconnaissance section taking quite a bit of damage. And yeah, this is real hard for you. Oh, do behave, mate. And again, your mortar just did a lot of work for you. And you knocked out a Schwimmwagen, so no reason to complain. Again, belly aching won't get you anywhere. And certainly you've been harshly berated by Montgomery himself, who had absolutely no sympathy for belly achers. Anything but that. If you didn't believe in victory, he'd kick you in your ass. Literally, I believe. He was smudged, but he was not a patient man with commanders who made complaints. And that was certainly one of the things that actually made him a decent commander. The ability to push on no matter what. But then again, he certainly did also have his flaws. But nonetheless, felt I'd like to point that out. Generally, you should always try to push onwards, even as the British are sort of a more defensive-oriented faction. But again, defensive doesn't mean sit back. And of course, pushing through here. Further infantry sections have been put together. This is good, although he might be careful not to spend too much manpower on this. He might want to get something out of that field support truck. Sturm Armory now on the way. Assault phase, will he be sticking here or will he be continuing right on? No, he's going straight for the battle phase. This is very, very sneaky. He's lost one MG42. Both Volksgrenadiers are still alive, but he certainly could use some replacements for them. You don't want to give the British commander too much of a foothold, lest you want yourself to suddenly find some hot tea being spilled down your neck. But moving about here, center secured. And Volksgrenadiers coming under fire right out in the middle of the open. Captain firing away with his Webley. Lieutenant with his Sten. MG42 firing away, forcing the captain away. Battle phase still continuing. Volksgrenadiers moving up to support the other Volksgrenadiers. Large British assault. MG42 firing away. Reconnaissance section, you're moving in for the flank. That, of course, is the good use of the reconnaissance section if regular battles, since they can move out without the supervision of a lieutenant. Assault being used by the Volksgrenadier. Lots of assault, in fact. Some on the reconnaissance, some on the other chaps. Stunning and damaging, but not really getting that many kills. And of course, at this stage, getting some stormtroopers and then perhaps a Stu-42 would be great. That's a lot of infantry, which could end up as being a lot of infantry clumped up. What does that mean? A Stu-42 will be having quite a bit of fun. But no, Panzer Command going up by Joe. That's certainly an incredibly fast Panzer Command. And it's certainly would have not worked against a lot of players. But again, this is sort of a more intermediate game. Not quite novices, but not quite hardened veterans, ready to stick and life in each other's throats. So of course this is a bit more unusual. And of course there's been quite a bit of resource sort of been hidden away to sort of keep this going. And apparently going for Fort Barracks. That makes no sense. And why? I mean, this is an awfully odd thing to do. Volksgrenadiers coming under heavy fire, pulling back towards the MG42 and Fort Barracks. British moving in a rather blob. Ronnie. What have I told you about blobbing? Or at least, I hope you've been listening about my cast on the subject of blobbing. Don't bloody well do it. Captain seizing a bit of territory. Good use of the captain. Stewart now ready on the field. Dagwood. Not sure what that means. What is the reference to more likely? But let's go and look at Ronniethebear. Ronnie the British a pig. Ronnie the British fellow, the good lad, fighting against the devilish Hun. And assault grenades once more. Our friend CptFrakasse is quite fond of it. Oh dear, the MG42 is taking quite a bit of damage again. Be careful of placing out open. Rifle grenades being lobbed against. Bren gun getting hit by stun grenades, or well, regular grenades. Just, more assault effect behind it. Stuart moving in. False grenades need to retreat. So does the MG42. And quite a bit of manpower. In fact, there's quite a bit of everything getting floated right here. But Ronniethebear, use it, mate. And CptFrakasse, retreat your false grenades. Oh dear. Wait, they make it out there. No, false grenade down. MG42 down. That's not good at all. In fact, one MG42 has been seized by the Britons already. Not very good uses of his MG42s. And again, not very good unit preservation. Again, unit preservation is key. Know when to retreat. Know when to stand your ground. Because that can really make the difference in the long run. Panzer command flashing. False gun is getting reinforced. Pioneers ready as well. Hiccup. Damn it. Brand section getting reinforced. And, well, forward bags quickly getting cleared out. That was a pretty bad choice in my opinion. Didn't really gain much. And observation post getting blasted away. MG42 setting up in the barrel factory. Stuart moving about as well. And a Panzer Kampfwagen 4 has arrived. In this case, probably the part of the G series, I suppose. Up armored with the high velocity gun, or the high velocity gun, not quite high velocity as the Panther, but still. And yet without armored skirts. And Veterancy 1 already up. This is a good move. Decreases damage taken. And the Brits are fully on the move, on the run. Probably hearing that Panzer 4. Or seeing it, who knows. There's certainly an officer peeking out there. No, wait. No, there isn't. Oh, well. But Panzer 4 maneuvering. False grenades moving in as well. Stuart pulling back. MG42 taking up position right here. Covering most of the area. Good job. And our Wehrmacht friend trying to take back some territory. Not looking too good. And he has to be careful with that Panzer 4 again. Keep it close to your infantry. Don't move it forwards. Oh, man, you dolt. What are you doing? Sappers with PX. What are you doing with that Panzer 4, mate? One sapper down. Mines cancelled. Don't move in that Panzer 4 without support, you. Well, let's try to keep a civil tongue, but really, don't do that. And now, of course, is again, one thing to note, and let's just briefly get this over with. It's a bit of a tank tactic. But there's a sort of trick to sort of getting them not to turn about that quickly, and let's just see if we can get the sort of effect right here. Yes, indeed. And we'll just be using here. You click closely behind the tank when it's, for example, in the direction its rear is turned. So in this case, for example, if I wanted to sort of back away, and that of course the thing you want with the front turned, you click closely behind it, sort of a series of that clicks. You can shift click, so it remembers it, and that way you sort of keep it moving away slowly with the frontal armor, which is something you like to keep it in. In fact, in most cases, unless you can be pretty confident there's not an enemy horde right close by. Again, that's a very vital piece of armor tactics, and I'm pretty sure if you stick to it, you'll certainly suddenly find your armor lasting a lot bloody longer. So that was that quickly, and let's return. Mortar rounds flying, Panzer 4 getting away. This time it gets lucky. But again, try not to do things like that. And a second Panzer 4 has arrived. Will it be moving in to support its first friend? Come on, Panzer 4. Stick together. You have high explosive rounds. Come on. Move it, mate. No, apparently it's a bit too occupied there. This is not good. Brits advancing. Panzer 4. Yes, there we go. He's slowly pulling it away. That's how you do it. Short clicks behind it, so it doesn't make a full turn. Keep moving, mate. Don't let the horde close in. Infantry should always be kept at bay. Armor is surprisingly vulnerable to anti-tank weaponry. Will held by infantry if they get too close. And false grenades are not they're retreating right through all of this. And again, Bren guns are ridiculously effective against retreating troops. And now the Panzer 4 getting buttoned up. Oh dear. And the other Panzer IV still not... No, it's moving now. Come on, Frakasse, get some armor tactic into your head. And there we go, Panzer IV down the drain. As for a mid-game analysis, well, currently Captain Frakasse is absolutely buggered. Tits up, not looking very good, and in fact might get a nice cozy job on the Eastern Front, clearing out trenches. Enemy trenches, that is. Panzer IV advancing, Stuart coming under a bit of fire. Looks like the Stuart might moving in, and the British horde. Again, I'm not really confident about this, happy about it, but then again, his opponent is, well, not clearly a Rommel, a Manstein, a Guderian, Hans von Luck, any decent German commander who knows how to move about your tanks. Nor is it a Kurt Panzermeier. Or Wittmann. I could go on. Perhaps it's more of a Colonel von Strom. But who knows, Panzer IV though on the retreat. And points being secured there, not going well for our friends in the 9th Panzer Division. Panzer Command flashing again. And he's moving in that Panzer IV without support. Oh dear you tit. Looks like the captain suffered a rather sad fate. Blasted to bits by a Panzer IV. And well, that's what happens when you get hit by a high explosive shell. You tend to die, Ronnie. I mean, you know, 75mm shell filled with high explosive. If you get hit by that, you generally don't tend to get back up. Or breathe, for that matter. And there we go, charging forwards again. And the Panzer IV. Oh dear, again, he's not really doing well with this. And this is getting very sneaky. In fact, he's flanking with the Piats on the Panzer IV, getting some good shots on the rear. Oh, Frakasse, Frakasse, Frakasse. And another Panzer IV out of control, and looks like he's now calling in Panthers. Which is a bit of a waste of resources again, and rather what he needs at this moment is infantry. Some bloody infantry, and he needs to stop bloody well throwing away his Panzers. Absolutely disgraceful, setting up machine gun placement here to cover this point. Not a bad idea. 17-pounder gun to cover this area, which is of course a much more open area and thus suited for armor movements, and of course suited for setting up a 17-pounder to put a stop to that nonsense. Panther, not really sure what to do. In fact, we probably won't be seeing anything from him, so let's speed this up. For heaven's sake. Pioneers and Mass now getting ready. And Ostwind's now, he's rather sort of figuring on a Panzer IV solely. Panther firing away. I mean, it's not bad against infantry. I mean, it's not that, but at this stage, it's not really what you want. And now he's getting a Schwimmwagen? Why on earth is he getting a Schwimmwagen? I mean, there's the reconnaissance bit, I suppose, but Schwimmwagen? Cromwell command tank has arrived as well, it seems. And the command truck is right there. And probably with the advent of the Panther, he's probably going to be getting a Firefly himself. Second Ostwind, hoping to deal with the infantry that way. Reconnaissance section getting blasted to bits by Panzermite. Pioneers moving through here and will probably be stopped by that Vickers machine gun emplacement. Vickers, if you want your opponent dead, get Vickers. And the Vickers machine gun emplacement coming under fire. Pioneers pinned down. Artillery getting ready now. Sneaky, sneaky. They're interestingly enough not laying down a lot of mines with the sappers, though he has several sapper teams and quite a bit of munitions. Could have put a really good stop to those Panzers, but you know. And a Pioneer team dead again. Unit preservation does seem to be his forte. Ostwind coming under fire, sappers moving in, Ostwind driving away, Flak Panzer firing away. Ostwind not the most produced Flak Panzer, though some did serve. The other been slightly more, but the more regular Flak Panzer would have been the Flak Panzer 38T Gepard, based on the Panzer 38T, which was also the sort of groundwork for the, or ground tank, well, The basis tank for the Hetzer and the Marder 3. The more regular, otherwise flag panzer was the Möbelwagen, which was basically like this, except it has a more boxed version that could, with the sides being able to go down to sort of hit ground targets, and it was either equipped with a flak feeling or with the sort of 37mm AA gun. And what's going on here? Something from the Reich headquarters. And he's sitting back with his panzers, not really being aggressive. And Schwimmwagen quickly taken to the cleaners and blown to bits. Schwimmwagens are not really what you wanted to go on against with fireflies. Oh dear, Ostwind's not doing too well either. He's trying to pull back. He's hoping to lure in the firefly, which I suppose is not a bad idea, but this is not really doing good, and in fact could end up being surrounded by an attack through here, depending on what Ronnie does. Nothing going on there. Tragic, but let us go return to Frakasse, who has gone for manpower blitz. Will he be using it? Is the inquiry. To sure. And yes, indeed, he's moving through here. Force is getting ready here for a frontal assault. Bren gun is getting ready to perhaps knock out that Panther, at least keep it buttoned down. And there we go, manpower blitz. Lots of Knight's Cross holders, apparently believing that victory lies with the Knight's Cross. Not entirely keen on that. Not entirely sure it is that, for that matter. And of course now the Brits are launching an assault on the base, of course forcing our friend Frakasse away from this point, lest he rather fancies his base getting filled with Britons. Will the Panzers move? They better move. Well, let's speed this up again. His reaction seems to be a bit slowed. Knight's Cross soldiers ready, and of course, thanks to the skin pack, they are looking vastly more improved and vastly less silly SS. Assault grenades being used. Not the best troops used for it, although you can. Sappers taking rid of the beating. British troops getting suppressed. Ostwind's moving in. Panther also moving in. Firefly moving in for a good few shots on that Ostwind, but the Blitz. Oh, but Blitz sacrifices his life so his Panzer brothers can make it to safety. Bunker knocked out. Knight's Cross holders need to retreat. Artillery getting called in on the Panther. Veterans free, my goodness. Assault grenades. Panther buttoned up. Panther taking quite a few direct hits. Needs to be careful. Needs repairs. And those Knight's Cross holders need to get back. Damn you. And the Panther getting repaired. Territory needs to get retaken lest he gets... otherwise he can't make anything else. A bit of decoy smoke, I wager that is. Knight's Cross holders can't reinforce because again, no population cap. More Fireflies getting ready to tame the Panther. Again, a rather disastrous lack of infantry. Lots of Knight's Cross. Did he just train to... I think that's a bug. Right, I can't explain that as otherwise, except that's a bug. Never seen it before, quite frankly, though. A Panther against two Fireflies is not the best thing. Well, that was curious. And artillery getting called in. Panther under heavy fire. Artillery getting called in. Pioneers dying. And the Knight's Cross are on the move. The Knights of the Cross, perhaps? No, not quite. Looking very veteran, looking very nasty. But with that command, I doubt they'll be living much longer. Or at least they better get out of there. They're probably the elite of the 9th Panzer Division, the best they can muster. And now they're getting gunned down for that, mate. Tragic. Panther getting shot up as well. Knight's Cross holders trying to take points. I'm not entirely sure there's even a plan from Frakasse at this stage. Base getting blasted to bits. Panther getting repaired. Knights crossholder suppressed. Oh dear. Knights cross, get out of there. There we go. And do I hear artillery on map or off map? Apparently off. Further troops dying. Not looking cheerful at all. A few assault grenades right here trying to stop the British movements. Knights Cross doing their best to delay this force, and they're in fact doing quite a nice job again. A lot less manpower holding up a lot more manpower, but in the end it won't be enough. They are simply not enough and will get killed, and plus their positions are pretty terrible. Not enough veterans either, otherwise they might actually have made it, I think, with those assault grenades, but sadly not. German panzers finding themselves in deep problem against those Fireflies. I really think he shouldn't have gone that route, but again, sort of gotten for a Stu 42 to deal with all that bridge rather than Ostwinds. And of course he should have kept his units alive. Damn you. But again, those are many of the dangers of the Panzer Rush, which was clearly what our friend from the 9th Panzer Division was hoping for. He was really hoping to catch Ronniethebear quite unprepared, using a lot of tanks and quickly sort of keeping things at bay. But of course, as you might have noticed, things rather fell apart. Frakasse perhaps just got too bold, but he lost the units that should actually support the panzers and kept things safe until then. And of course, he wasn't even able to hold that off because, as you might have noticed, rather long front, and he only had 4 units, 2 of those which were MG42s. Now the Firefly has to face off against the Panthers. Will it get repaired? Oh, cough. German base is pretty much dust.
We are losing ground. Ready for target. They're in our base. They're hitting our base.
Not sure what the Knights Crossholders are up to. Ostwinds keeping all the Brits at bay. In fact, looks like they're doing quite a bit of damage, but that's about it. Pioneers being called in for no apparent reason. Also, one fun thing to note, if it, again had he gone for the other side, he'd actually be able to get a Pan Tiger a lot earlier, which could also have helped. But again, it seems like resource management hasn't been our friends here strong side. Panther hoping to get the drop on the Fireflies. Artillery getting called in on the Knights Crossholders. Knights Crossholders taking excessive damage. Oh dear. Charging just forwards again. Looks like the death throes of CptFrakasse of the 9th Panzer Division, as he's throwing everything to the wind in the hope to delay everything while he makes a run for it. Getting ready to surrender, lest he get turned over to the penal battalion of some unit on the Eastern Front. And now calling in Stormtroopers. I think it's too late for that, mate. My apologies, but I sincerely think it's too late. And now commanders are arriving. Grenades getting lobbed. Assault grenades. Stormtroopers, I suppose, with a penetrate could turn this around, but I think it's too late. This is the end, my friend. You have failed the fatherland in a rather embarrassing manner. But nonetheless, let's speed this up and then get to the end game lesson. And of course, there are certainly a few things we can learn from this. And yeah, this is just a slaughter of good German troops, veteran troops, in fact, stormtroopers and Knights Crossholders. That's not exactly Volksgrenadieren. And there we go, game over. The 9th Panzer Division utterly shattered, or at least the few regiments and or the few battalions thrown into this mess, completely torn asunder by the foolishness of CptFrakasse, and of course a victory for the 7th Armoured Division and Ronniethebear. But of course, the bloody question you're probably already wondering in your head and wanting to ask me is, what the devil can we learn from this? Well, of course, I mean, we saw a good rush, or well, attempt at a rush. I mean, 10 minutes and he had a Panzer command. That's a bit of a rarity. And of course, it probably could have worked, but there was a few problems. I mean, Rush is a rather dependent on a few things. Partly that you're can do things faster than your opponent can react, and partly, of course, that you can keep things together until you have what you need. That didn't really happen. I mean, he sort of threw things to the wind. He tried with a serious base assault, but again, poor unit preservation saw him lose things that should not have been lost, and thus he suddenly found himself unable to hold the territory which he had. And again, that was a quite wide front, which of course meant it was going to get very difficult. Plus, he wasn't really stopping his opponent from getting what he needed. Fuel. In fact, there was absolutely no problems for Ronniethebear to get fuel. And of course, bit him in the arse as there was a lot of sappers appearing, and of course with no infantry support for those panthers. And again, a blob. Oh, Ronnie, promise me in the future, don't blob up. Please promise me. That would make me a very happy caster. But nonetheless, back to things. Get a steward, get a lot of sappers, which of course might not be the best way, but again, certainly got the drop on those panzer force which were moved in without infantry support, because again, he pretty much lost all of that. And then he sort of rushed in his panzers with no support at all. Again, bloody terrible. Do not move in panzers against infantry hordes without support. Do not do it ever, ever, ever. I mean, at least had he perhaps conserved his force and then got all that moving out, he might actually have been able to pull it through. But no, not very good. And no idea again where that Schwimmwagen came into it. And again, again, it's sort of a matter again of diverting your resource. I mean, if you're going blitzkrieg, usually you're better off getting some, at least bits of the left half. And again, Stu 42, if your British opponent is blowing your blitzkrieg, get the Stu 42. Do not question, do not even hesitate. Get it and deliver some heavy artillery fire right into their ranks. That is what you must do. No discussion. I don't want to hear discussion. I don't want to see commentary saying, but I don't get it. End of discussion. I command it. Besides that, though, again, I mean, we saw some good usage in Ronniethebear sort of handling this, although he did get a bit driftful and a bit snarky. Don't, again, try to keep cool. I mean, you can imagine all the terrible things you want to do them to him in your head, all you want, but again, be civilized, be a gentleman, don't utter a single word about it. And again, this sort of problem, again, he was trying to hold too much territory, but couldn't do it. Poor Frakasse, and I mean, I think the most we're learning from it is, of course, is in the negatives, because Frakasse made quite a few mistakes. He was level 10, so of course he had some good ideas. Trouble was the execution sort of fell apart. Not good. But there you go. I hope you enjoyed this fight. If you did, why not subscribe or tell your friends? And if you didn't, well, why not send in a replay of your own? And hopefully later today I'll be able to put up the double episode for the 10 or my first 1,000 subscribers. So there you go, and cheers.